to do that. We'll talk Bison football instead. Hey, pretty good ball game on Saturday for your Bison fan, although I think most of the students bailed out at about halftime. Did they not in the victory over Prairie View?
I looked out. We were doing a halftime show, and I looked across to where the students are sitting, and I thought, oh boy, they're virtually gone. And I was thinking maybe some of them would come back, and a few did after halftime. But most took off at halftime.
There were more fun things to do.
You and I were in college once ourselves, and so I would imagine that they found something else to do after it was 45-0 at halftime.
If there was a 45-0 game, I would not be coming back either. And as a 46-year-old adult, I would not come back to a 45-0 game. I'm going to be honest with you. I'd find something else to do.
There were more people who hung around, at least through the third quarter, than maybe what I had thought or would have expected. But by the fourth quarter, the pickings were a little slim. People had headed for the exits because the game literally was over after one quarter.
This Saturday, let's get past the 75-0 game, wherever the heck it was on Saturday. It was an ugly game. It was an NDSU, I think, desperation schedule deal with Prairie View, wasn't it? That's kind of the deals that they...
Yeah, I think, and you and I were talking about this morning, Mike, it's really difficult for Gene Taylor, the athletic director at NDSU, to try to find non-conference opponents to come to the Fargo Dome. And so I think Prairie View was one of the last games that the Bison were able to put on the 2012 schedule. And so the way it works is you just try to find a Division I school that will take some money, come up and play here, because especially after the way the Bison have been playing the last couple of 2-3 years, nobody wants to come up and get a whooping, and that's kind of what we saw on Saturday.
And remember, Georgia Southern, which is a fine Division I AA program, they bailed out last year of their game. They bought out of it, and just wrote a check and said, no thanks, we don't want to come up to this year. Ended up coming up for the playoffs and got thumped at the Fargo Dome, but it's tough to find home games. And, of course, a smart aleck texter or emailer emails in and says, you know, UND has said many times they'll fill those tough-to-fill dates at the Fargo Dome to play NDSU.
I guess there was some pretty lively discussion about that on our Bison Rewind show. Ryan Gellner, the host of that show, was telling me that some people had called up and they had a real back and forth about whether or not NDSU should schedule UND for said non-conference game.
I tend to agree with our mutual friend Jeff Kolpak's take in the paper. I think it was Saturday, maybe. Maybe it was Friday.
Friday, I think.
That there's no way that game's happening. There's just too much back and forth between the schools. There's still too much of a rivalry there. There's too much bickering behind the scenes that we don't even know about, and some that we do know about. And so I'm kind of in the Jeff Kolpak camp.
I think he might be right on that, too, and he wrote that kind of mock obit as part of his column.
Yes.
And I do think that there's a lot of back and forth still going on, and I think even 2015 is maybe a little bit optimistic.
Northern Iowa, they are, 1-3 now this year as NDSU goes down to Cedar Falls. What did Craig Bowles say about Northern Iowa at the Bison press conference over the noon hour, Scott?
Well, he first of all said that Northern Iowa, despite its 1-3 record, is a really good football team. No, that's what you would expect.
Did he say that?
Yeah.
That shocks me.
By just setting the tone, that is literally true. But he said it's tough to win in Cedar Falls. That's very true. The Bison have lost each of their last 2 games there. And UNI is always a good team. And I think this is still an excellent football team, even though it's 1-3. But here's the problem for the Panthers. You've got to have 7 Division I counting wins in order to be eligible for the FCS playoffs. Right now, Northern Iowa has 0 Division I counting wins.
Well, they have a win.
They got a win, but that was over a non-Division I school in Central State of Ohio, 59-0. The other games, losses at Wisconsin, 26-21. UNI played very well and almost beat the Badgers with a late comeback. Lost at Iowa a couple of weeks ago, 27-16. And then this past Saturday in Youngstown, a shootout with the Penguins, and Youngstown won it 42-35. So Northern Iowa now has 7 games left in its regular season, needs to win all 7 just to get to the minimum number of wins you need to be considered for a playoff.
It's not going to happen. They're done. I'll call it right here. I'm going to go on a limb and say that Northern Iowa's done for the year because there's no way they're going to run the table the rest of the way through the Valley Conference.
This league is so tough. Yeah, I can't see it happening either. But having said that, Northern Iowa is a really good team. It's got a young redshirt freshman quarterback by the name of Sawyer Colmorgan. It's a mouthful. He's a transfer from Western Michigan. Very good player, and he's put up some good numbers already. He's thrown for 9 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. They've got good skilled people. They've just got a lot of good athletes. And Craig Bohl is absolutely not blowing smoke when he says that when you go to Cedar Falls, you better be ready to play because they defend their home turf very well. And you know it's going to be loud in there. It may not be as loud inside the Unidome as it is game in, game out at the Fargo Dome. But you know these guys are going to be playing hard because they've got to get this win.
Did anybody ask Bohl, and I'm sure that they did probably in several different ways, with Northern Iowa playing for its life, is it going to make it tougher for NDSU? Is it going to, can NDSU counter that somehow? What was Craig's response?
Craig, he was asked that in a couple of different ways, and he basically said it's hard to judge how UNI is going to respond after the loss to Youngstown State, knowing that it does kind of have its back against the wall. And I think that's an accurate way of putting it, too, because we just don't know how the Panthers are going to come out. But in all the games that I have seen over the years, with either North Dakota State and Northern Iowa or other schools in Northern Iowa, they always play hard, and especially at home. They do play really well in that Unidome. So I don't think that anybody should consider that this is going to be a blowout game by any stretch of the imagination. I think NDSU is going to have to play its best in order to get this win. Now, Daniel Gunderson and I were talking about this earlier. Northern Iowa's defense has given up a lot of rushing yards already this season, about 147.5 per game on average through 4 games. And if NDSU is able to run the ball on Northern Iowa Saturday, which is its want, then that could spell some trouble for the Panthers. But you never know what's going to happen in the course of a game if you get a turnover or 2, and then the home crowd gets fired up behind it. I think this is going to be a really tough game.
Emailer asked the question, and I don't know, did UNI's quarterback get hurt against Youngstown State? Do we know that? I guess I don't. Yeah, I don't know the answer to that. So
I don't believe so. I know that he is still listed as the starter as we begin the week, but I don't have any confirmation that Cole Morgan left that game hurt.
You know what I like best about the NDSU Northern Iowa week?
What?
The love between Craig Bohl and Mark Farley, the NDSU head coach and the UNI head coach. I bet they spent a lot of time this summer hanging out at the lake together,
playing golf,
sipping on some beer, playing golf, exchanging Christmas cards, all these type of things, right?
Yeah, and sharing, of course, their recruiting
lists. Yes.
Because,
They don't like each other.
You and I remember, Mike, going back a few years ago now, when Pat Bashal and L.J. Fort, their linebacker, kind of got into it on the Bison sideline, and it actually cost Bashal half a game suspension from the league office, if you'll recall, and that sideline incident where they got tangled up, and Bashal was the second one to this little fracas, and he was the one that the officials caught, and he shoved Ford, I think, up against the wall or something. The officials saw it, flagged him, and then it cost him a half a game suspension the next week. And that was the South Dakota State game, if I remember correctly, too. So that was a big suspension at the time.
And Bohl and Farley, and whatever Craig says at the press conference, I respect him. I love this guy. This guy's a fine coach, yada, yada, yada. There's just no love lost there. It just makes it this week even more fun. Because Farley, the coach from Northern Iowa, folks, if you don't know, he's a bit of a acerbic fellow.
Yeah.
A little rough around the edges with pretty much everybody else in the league. And I don't think that Craig Bohl's the only guy who maybe isn't exchanging Christmas cards with Mark Farley, but it makes it just more fun from they just want to win so bad.
Yeah, Mark Farley can be a little on the surly side, and doesn't really like to visit that much with the media, and that's all right. I mean, I understand that.
No, it's not.
Craig Bohl had said today, he said that this game has all kinds of storylines between the two programs.
Yes.
Chris Kleiman, the Bison defensive coordinator, was a standout football player at Northern Iowa and a former defensive coordinator of the Panthers. This will be his first trip back to the Unidome as an opposing coach since making the move to NDSU last year. Billy Turner, an offensive lineman for the Bison, his older brother Maurice Turner was a wide receiver for Northern Iowa. Marcus Williams and Terrell Sinkfeld of Northern Iowa played together in high school. So there are all kinds of little storylines that are woven in between the two programs. And one of my favorite comments that Craig Bohl said today at his news conference is he said, a lot of these guys on the two teams played together in Pop Warner when they were kids. And so these are long-standing rivalries, And so the intensity level gets ratcheted up, not just a click or two. I think it's going to be off the charts, and for that reason, I think it's going to be a really intriguing game to follow.
Game time on Saturday?
6:07, and Ryan Gelder has our tailgate show beginning at 4:30 in the afternoon, then our network-wide pregame show at 5:30. And we'll see how it plays out starting at 6:07 from the Unidome.
Can you do me a favor?